You know how AI is kind of like dumb and wrong? What if it was dumb and wrong a bunch of times really fast on its own, unsupervised?
Butterscotch Shenanigans.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 529 of Coffee with Butterscotch, the game dev comedy podcast of Butterscotch Shenanigans. I'm Seth and I'm the games programmer.
I'm Adam the Miscellaneous Programmer.
I'm Sam and I'm the artiste.
And this is the show where we talk about life, business, and working in the games industry. Today is July 11th, 2025. Yeah, that's the date. So remember it.
Yep.
Before we get started, we have a warning. There's going to be profanity in this show. And we'd also like to thank our recurring supporters over at moneygrab.bscotch.net. Thank you so much for your monthly donations to help keep the podcast going. All right. So we got a couple of little news items we're going to get into, and then hopefully we'll answer part of a question.
Let's do it.
All right.
Yeah.
So first of all, we've been working on update 1.3 for Crashlands 2 because we just launched 1.2 like
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
Yep.
And we also had a 1 week break in between. So we basically have like 1 week of work on update 1.3. It's going super good. We are going to wait a little while before we start talking more about what's in it because it's still coalescing. However, there's one thing that it does have that we definitely know it's going to have, which is eye nipples.
Yep.
Yep.
Just going to leave that there. Just let that marinate. Just look
We
at
realized we forgot to add those at launch, and
feature.
so we got those.
You
now.
might be wondering, is that nipples on eyes? Is that nipples for eyes? Is that eyes for nipples?
And these are great questions.
Great questions.
So anyway, moving on.
Yep.
So let's shit on AI for a bit,
Let's do it.
okay? Because it's about time. It's been a minute since we've done it.
Yep.
So some stuff is happening in the AI space, and we were talking about it a little bit. So first off, let's talk about Cursor. Cursor was in the news this week. It is a coding platform. It's a VS Code fork, right?
Yep.
Or like give or take. So it's like a version of VS Code, which we use VS Code for all of our programming stuff. It's a Microsoft product, and it's super expandable. And like we use Copilot in ours,
And it's
so like
it's free and open source, which is pretty amazing.
Which is nice.
For
Yeah.
something that like robust and heavily used, right?
at least for now.
Yeah. For
You know,
Well, actually, they just open sourced Copilot inside of it. So the Copilot extension in VS Code, which I'm pretty sure they did because of Cursor and a bunch of other whippersnappers who are starting to nip at the heels of what Microsoft and Copilot are trying to do. You know, so they were like, well, if we open source this, then all of a sudden
then nobody else can keep up. You know?
Yeah, because ultimately, like Microsoft is getting or at least its plan is to make its money through charging people to use the AI models, which cannot be open sourced, cannot be run on your own machine because they require an entire, tower of world burning engines to actually compute your code completes.
But Cursor, to finish the what it is though, it's like Copilot, right? It's just a way of doing it.
It's like a turbo. Yeah, it's a version of VS Code that's oriented around.
Yeah, it's
using
much more
AI
integrated. So the idea was that like with VS Code, it's all about you can like add extensions and they can then do stuff that expands the features of VS Code, but they're really limited because they can only do stuff that's allowed by extensions, right? And so Microsoft was struggling with this when they started working on Copilot because Copilot had to come in as an extension, which meant it couldn't be as like deeply integrated with VS Code. So Cursor was like, hey, VS Code's open source. Let's just fucking fork it, make our own business where we do deeply integrate.
Where we bake the AI just right in there.
And so that allowed them to like iterate and do some frankly cool stuff, like in approaches to like, how do you actually do this and do this well? Because they decided to not be limited by like what extensions are allowed to do.
Yeah. And to be clear, so Cursor is very successful. They're like the biggest one.
I haven't even used it, but I've heard only good things about it basically.
Make it bank. So they're doing a good job with the product, right? But here's where things get wrinkly with all this AI stuff, which is cost, as always cost, right? So the reality is that when you ask an AI to do something for you, to Adam's point, you got to burn something and do the compute.
You got to burn 3 or 4 forests.
Yeah, at least. And so, there's this interesting money thing happening where with any startup, so like Uber, whatever else, in the early phases, the whole thing is always subsidized by these large investments, right? These investments
loss leaders.
Yeah, loss leaders. They're designed to so typically then the reason why the price of Uber's gone up to the point where you're like, it's the fucking same as a taxi now or whatever, is because in the very beginning, they don't need to actually have the revenue coming out of the direct like product sales or product usage, service usage, because what they're trying to do is just take over the market first, right? Take over the market
so they
first.
survive off of investor capital. So
Yes.
so they go for market capture. It's like let's offer our services for free or extremely cheaply relative to everything else. We'll just eat the losses as investors pump money into our ecosystem.
Until our
We
competitors
use that
go out of
investor money to
business.
stay alive. Once our competitors are out of business and we've fully captured the market, then we just charge just
Whatever the
ass
fuck
loads of
we
money.
want. Yeah.
Yeah,
And this is why you see typically like where we're at in a lot of the tech cycle stuff. That's why prices just
is there.
yeah, it's kind of there, right? Kind of across the board, streaming, whatever else. It's like prices just keep going up because they killed everybody. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so what's interesting though is that, you know, unlike something like I don't know, like Netflix, right? Where it's like, yeah, there's a bunch of people on the creation side who like create the content that goes on Netflix, who rely on Netflix having money, paying out, whatever. But there's not a lot of services like downstream from Netflix that like use Netflix as a tool to do something, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
there's not businesses built on
Stops at
top of it.
Netflix. Yeah.
Yeah. The businesses built on top are like fueling Netflix itself. They're not like being fueled by Netflix, right? And so in the case of the AI stuff, there's this interesting inversion there, which is that AI models are super cheap to use currently, relatively cheap. They've been getting cheaper, but the basically like the more advanced they get, every next like model iteration typically comes with an actual price increase, right?
Yeah,
or at least
basically an
for
existing
access.
model gets cheaper over time, while each
Correct.
newly launched model is more expensive than the last launched model because each one is more expensive to create because they have to
Yes.
burn,
Couple
10
more
times as
taskers.
many trees basically, like each time you upgrade the model to build the next model. And so, someone's got to pay for all of that.
So what's interesting though is then you're looking at this from there's a sort of a stack problem, which is at the very bottom of the stack. You have these AI models run by these AI companies, and their whole thing is they're making more advanced models. Those models cost more, and then they have the ones in the background that are cheaper that you can use, whatever. All of that is currently being subsidized, right? In the sense that you're not paying full price actually for what the usage probably costs typically.
You are being captured. You're being market
Being
captured.
yeah.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
on top of that, though, you see all these businesses, like actual full-on business, Cursor being one of them, who rely on the output of these AI models then or like the integration with them, which they do not own. They have no control over the costs from in order
So
to.
Cursor is an AI code editor that has no LLM.
Yeah. They tie
don't
into
have
the other
one.
ones, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what we're starting to see a little bit is like, what happens? What happens then when one of those AI overlords who runs one of these things changes the pricing model? How does that then echo into the like bajillion now startups?
Yeah.
New
Or
companies?
Cursor itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think
Like-
even outside of like them changing the model, it's also a question of, or it's the fact that also LLMs aren't very good for like accurately handling the job you need done. And when I say not very good, I mean like they'll still, depending on the purpose and how good you,
You
are
mean
using
that,
them.
you mean it takes a few goes
It takes
to
a
get-
few.
yes.
It takes a few tries. It's wrong a lot. You have to edit the output and so on, right? Which means that if you are building a business, that whole thing is like, let's deliver LLM features to you, right? Then that means they're kind of inherently not very good, right? But the next model of LLM that comes out means that whatever they're trying to provide for their business will be much better if they upgrade to
Right.
the latest and greatest.
So you
model.
need
So-
to be you need to be
So
moving
yeah.
up.
So Cursor
And each
needs to
model
be like
costs
plugging
twice as
into
much as the last
the
one.
best models
Yeah.
so that it can generate
The best
better
results.
features for customers, right? So,
so this leads us to the price
Cursor-
change basically from last
Yeah.
week.
Yeah. So Cursor's billing model was, I think, $20 a month,
Mhm.
and that was just like a subscription. You pay $20 a month, and you get access to the LLMs and
That's it.
blah blah blah, and that's it, right? As these different AI models have released like enterprise versions and come out with more features, more accuracy, or whatever. Cursor has had to keep up with that, and they're shifting over. So, of course, their costs are just going up and up and up, right? They're billing users a fixed amount of money, and then Cursor has to pay for API usage of these LLMs. Right. And at some point, they just can't do it anymore, right? So they switched their payment model so that like it's still $20 a month. But that just basically buys you access.
Well, now you're
and
paying
up to like a certain amount of
because now you're just
usage,
paying
right?
for API usage like directly.
Essentially, yeah. It's
But
essentially
it just
credit.
starts at you just like start at $20 a month baseline, and that gives you $20 worth of API credit costs, right? plus whatever overhead they're taking, because presumably they're taking a percentage overhead on top or something like that. And then you can buy like another $20 block of credits or whatever, right? Which is it's a usage based model, but done with sort of batch credits towards usage,
right?
But yeah, so they switched basically from a flat rate, heavy
Maximum
users are
price,
subsidized by
right?
low, because the cost to Cursor is that every time anybody uses their product, it costs them money, right?
So another way to think about it is. It used to be that $20 a month was the maximum that you would pay. Now it's the minimum.
Yeah.
Right?
And so naturally, this has been surprising for a lot of people because you can also do like a lot of these. I don't know how much Cursor has it, but basically you can really set these things loose and kind of let them run for a bit, right?
Yeah, that's what everybody's doing right now is this agentic shit, right? So, and Cursor it absolutely is doing it. Their whole thing is like, hey, look, you can just like tell your thing you want to do, and you can just turn it loose for half an hour, and then it's like see what it did.
Right. Like, you know how AI is kind of like dumb and wrong? What if it was dumb and wrong a bunch of times really fast on its own, unsupervised?
Yeah, while you're having a coffee break, you know?
Yeah. So now it's like, oh, actually you come back and it's like, that cost me $70 or something. And it's like, so these prices are, everyone's like, oh, fuck. And to Cursor's credit, as far as handling this, one, they communicated it very poorly, which I think has to do with a lot of things. One is like keeping the same price when the subscription. There's so many things that they did wrong as far as just letting people know this was happening. But they're offering refunds basically from the last basically 2 weeks of this like surprise usage problem for people. So they're trying to make that whole thing right. But you really, I think what we're seeing here is kind of a glimpse then, right, of what all this can mean at the end of the day, which is like the goal of any of these large AI companies is to be the one model that you as a person are completely relying on, or is the basis of many businesses, whatever else. And then they just turn up a knob to get more money, and then everything downstream of that has to also turn up the cost of everything that they do, right? And you end up in this really pretty fucking rough spot in terms of market capture, right? Where it's not just like fucking taxis with Uber. It's like, I don't know, most software startups right now are in AI. It's like, what the fuck happens when the price doubles by force?
Probably, I don't use Uber. Like, I don't, if I can help it, but I don't really go anywhere right now, but presumably they're integrating AI shit too, right? So like, it's literally everything. Everybody is trying to do it. Everybody.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Everyone's shoving it.
What happens, Sam, to answer your question, is the same thing that always happens, which is that the people who are currently winning will win even harder. Right? And this is, if you kind of cast this forward, you're going to see this play out just over and over and over again. So, for example, robotics. So right now, people are trying to capture like the digital world with AI. It's like, if we can make digital, quote, agents, in other words, like digital laborers, digital workers that can do shit instead of people, then companies will be like, oh my God, this is so much cheaper than a person. I don't have to hire anybody. I can just rent this AI, rent a digital worker from one of these companies for $1,000 a month instead of $5,000 a month or 10,000 or 50,000. And they'll just kind of flop around like an idiot for a while, and eventually maybe something good comes out, And if that doesn't work, I'll just hire a few more of these digital workers and good to go. So like we're talking about, it's cheaper than a person right now and worse than a person right now. At some point, it might be better than a person in some scenarios and still cheaper. But eventually, no matter what, it will be way more fucking expensive than a person.
Yeah, because
that's the goal, right?
Yeah, that's the goal. Yeah, that's the tricky part.
And then when it comes to say
actual
robotics,
goal is to have it be just less expensive than a person, right? Because what they want to do is they want to capture the labor market, right? Which means
even if it costs the same as a person, it's not a person. So it's not going to sleep. It's not going to complain. It's not going to ask for rights.
Yeah.
And so
I mean, from a value
that's
to cost standpoint, right? If you can
get
you want to, like, what they want to accomplish is like that they get to exactly the point where you'd be like, oh, should I just hire somebody instead? And then just below that, right? So that like that's the ultimate goal of labor capture from this thing, because they're all talking this thing. Everything that they're saying is insane and bad, right? But like, even if you like ignore all the nuances and just buy right into the vision, we're like, nobody has to work ever again, right? Which is bullshit, right? But that's like the ultimate lie, because that's not actually their goal anyway. Their goal is to make it so that they convert every job into an AI job where they capture all the revenue.
That's just all they just want all the
money. Where the cost of doing that is what it would have cost to hire a person in the first place.
Yes.
Yeah. Now the next point on the timeline, once this sort of digital capture happens, which is going to take a long time, don't get me wrong. It's going to be gradual, but it's going to, this is the goal of what these companies are doing. Like each company, they're willing to throw so much money to this because they want to be the company that provides digital laborers to the world, right? There are companies that are working on robotics because they have the same goal in the physical world, right? At some point, you'll be able to rent a robot to do house chores, and then later on to do some kind of warehouse work, and then later on some kind of construction work, and it's just going to keep going. And those robots, renting them, because you probably don't need to buy them, you can probably just rent them from these companies or whatever. They'll be a lot cheaper than a person at first. And then eventually they won't be. But the problem with all this,
and also remember, cheaper doesn't mean cheap, because everyone's dream on like the utopian side of this, which again is bullshit in so many ways, but even like the core idea of like, oh, it'll be so much cheaper. It's like, but not cheap, right? Because like if you think of like even existing factories that are using robots to do all kinds of shit, like a car factory that has like those fancy ass weird arms that do all kinds of stuff, right? Yep. Each one of those arms probably costs $500,000, right? Mm-hmm. Like, the only people who will ever be able to afford this stuff when we get there are people who already have fuckloads of money. Like that's
So I've been hearing this metaphor these past few weeks that I just fucking love with regard to this, which is the metaphor of the self-licking ice cream cone. Okay, so the idea with the self-licking ice cream cone is like it's a satirical concept of like there's an inventor who comes up with this patent for a self-licking ice cream cone, and they're trying to like sell people on this idea, and people are like, why would I want that? And he's like, well, the thing is, the ice cream cone licks itself, so now nobody has to lick it. It's efficient, and it's like so much better than a regular ice cream cone because now nobody has to do anything, right? So kind of like AI that makes art, AI that makes, music for you or whatever, as if the act of creating the thing, the act of like expressing yourself is some kind of a burden that people don't want to do. And it's better to offload that onto a robot, right? So this kind of extends even further into the market as a whole, which is like all these companies are trying to crowd laborers out of the market. You know who laborers are? Everyone, every person, right? Every person who works on stuff is a laborer. And if you don't have people involved, then you're not paying anybody. Nobody has fucking money, and they can't buy your services. The only reason the economy works is for money to move in a circle, right? Mm-hmm. And so if it only flows in one direction, the entire fucking civilization collapses, right?
Well, which is fine by me. The outcome but it's already mostly moving in one direction, right?
But this is an acceleration, of that trend. And so I think, there's no stopping it, but it's just an interesting thing to note that like the goal of the people at the top is to have all the money. Once they have all the money, nothing works. Like the way that they got there, like they've won capitalism, but they have there's nothing to do. Nobody can do anything. Nobody can buy anything. And so basically what I'm saying is under the current model, the goal is to destroy the model. And that's okay because like I think it has to be destroyed in order to like make room for something new, but there's going to be a really, really turbulent.
Yeah, the destruction of it is going to cause endless pain and suffering and horribleness. So it's not really okay that it's collapsing. Well, it does need to.
The tricky part with all this is that I think it's true that it's true that a lot of the vision associated with the AI tools, the sparkly side of it, is around the whole idea of not having to work so much, or having even like a robot who lives in your house and does all the house stuff for you, which would be dope. Everybody would be like, yeah, it'd be great. The problem is that as you peel it back and you look at how these models have worked traditionally in some of these other startup environments like Uber or whatever else, what it looks like is going to happen is not just that part, but rather this like market capture and then insane price jack up. Like it's not just the cool part. It's not just the cool, like outer shiny
it's being of done the idea. Through the engine of capitalism, right?
Yeah. And so it ends up with this like piece where you're like, it's not actually what
it's like. Nobody necessarily wants to work in a job that they're not interested in, but people have to because of money.
There's plenty of stuff like that. That's, even just in day-to-day life, where it's not even necessarily, it's not a thing that you would even be paid for. It's just like taking care of your own stuff, right? Like, making bed in the morning. Like also like
washing the dishes.
Yeah. But I think the challenge is like it is so attractive, the utopic vision of it, that I think it's masking in many ways what is driving it, which is this like market capture and then like all wealth absorption problem that has no brakes on it. And so it's a perpetually increasing dystopia under the guise of a utopia, right? Yeah. And I think that's where it gets like, as you look at it, I don't like where that's going. Even if I do like some of the tools and stuff that are coming. Yeah. Like, I like this. I don't like the engine.
And it cracks me up every time I hear one of these AI CEOs coming out and they're like, okay, you guys, listen, AI is going to take everyone's jobs and we have to be ready for it. And it's like, you mean you are going to take everyone's job, right? Like as if they have no agency over the fucking thing that they themselves are making. Like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, you guys. Like this thing that I made is going to take everyone's job. Anyways, so as part of this kind of like, now right now we're in a bubble.
How do you know? But how do you know we're in a bubble?
And you know this because Meta announced this week that they're going to be paying anywhere between $100 to $300 million compensation packages to bring top AI engineers in so that their AI could be the best. That's Fortune 500 C-suite level compensation.
That's beyond
for just like
it's probably a Fortune 10, right?
Yeah. Like you don't get that kind of compensation unless you're the CEO of like one of the 5 most valuable companies in the world.
Or if you're like, I don't know, like one of the best NBA players or something. You know what I mean? Like literally, it's not a salary. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's not a salary.
So like,
it's so insane.
Yeah. And like the last time Meta did something like this, it was the metaverse, where they're like, let's throw $15 billion into this thing because they thought that was a market that they could sort of capture. It wasn't one, but
Meta's good at exactly one thing, which is stealing your private data.
Buying stuff.
Yeah, and buying stuff that steals your private data, right? They're very good. They're very good at that, and have proven that they can't do anything else.
They can make money somehow. They can definitely make money. So that's just what's going on with AI stuff. Basically, we're hitting that point where some of the market capture, like some of these companies are starting to try to capitalize on it and stop subsidizing the losses so hard and start actually like jacking up the prices. And we'll kind of see where that goes.
Yep.
As people become more and more dependent on AI tools, those tools will become sort of like local monopolies. And this is just going to start happening more and more. So just be aware. If you're somebody who's vibe coding, maybe learn to code for real.
Yep.
You know, or whatever. If you've been using AI to make your art, maybe make your art for real. Maybe do it yourself, you know, because at some point it's going to cost you $100 per image. So.
There was and this is the part of it too, is that you don't really control when you're using something, when the per usage aspect is really expensive, right? If you control like how you're using it, then, you get to make all kinds of decisions about how much do I spend, whatever, right? But if you kind of have to use it because it's how you do something, then you don't really get to control. But further, if you're using it through an intermediary that determines how much of it you use, then you don't get to control the fact that you need it constantly, nor your actual usage, per minute or whatever. Right? This is where all these tools kind of play, because LLMs as like a thing, right, that all these big companies provide API access to. They just do exactly one kind of thing, right? Or a small number of kinds of things, which is basically take some text, run it through a model, give you something back, right? And there's a few flavors of that, but it's pretty limited actually what they do. All of the stuff that actually becomes useful is like what people do on top, where they're deciding what to send and what to do with what comes back, and like if they're gonna send things back and forth a few times or give you like 10 things at once or whatever, right? Which means that when you're using something like Cursor or Copilot or whatever, you don't even know how much usage is happening under the hood to get you there, right? Because I think about this every time I'm using Copilot in VS Code, where I'm like typing something, and then if I pause for just a brief moment, it's like, hey, here's one thing, right? And then there's like a hotkey you can hit to show like the other 9 things that it also got for you. And the way that it works behind the scenes is it's like indexing all of your stuff, and it's like trying to figure out like what you did most recently, and then compose a query basically to send off, get results back, try to validate those results, give you those, go back and do some more, right? And literally anytime you pause, it does that. Anytime.
Even if you don't want it to.
Especially if you don't want it to. It feels
Which we talked about in a recent episode.
So you have no control over how costly a good result is, right?
Yes.
Because a good result isn't just, oh yeah, I just hit the API.
It's not one-to-one.
Yeah, it's not one-to-one. And the use cases that are really good, like where people have found good ways to do it, are extremely expensive. And that's going to not become less true over time.
Correct.
That's going to become more true over time, because what we're seeing is that people are finding use cases for LLMs that produce real value, they're doing it through iterative uses of LLMs plus like what's
basically like the result you get is the tip of an iceberg of stuff that people have done, underneath there to make it so that the LLM's a little more on target.
And so even as the models aren't getting cheaper, but even if they were getting cheaper, we use them more. So it doesn't like every new use case that is better than the last use case involves using them more than they did before. So the fact that they're getting cheaper doesn't mean your actual usage of them gets cheaper. It just means that more use cases become tolerable in their cost potentially, right?
Well, and you might be thinking like, well, if the AI models get cheaper, then like Cursor won't charge me as much.
But this is the market capture problem, right?
Yeah, because so like I was looking at some stuff about the egg price thing that's happened in the US.
Yep.
Over the past 2 years. And everyone's talking about bird flu. 1 million birds died here. 1 million birds died over there.
It's been a lot of bird deaths.
A lot of birds died, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any fucking idea how many chickens there are? There's billions of chickens laying eggs. Okay. Like there's so fucking many chickens. The actual supply of eggs only went down by like a couple of %. But the price of eggs tripled. Yep. And the reason is because there was a narrative out there of like, oh my God, there's a bird flu. There's going to be a shortage. The couple of companies that now are like that own pretty much the whole fucking market of eggs. Right?
Most eggs end up getting to you through like two companies.
Yeah. They were like, ooh, opportunity. Right. And this was just after COVID. So people were like, familiar with the idea of supply chain shocks. Yeah. Right. And it's like, sometimes prices of things just go up a lot because of supply chain. Right. So the news started hitting about the bird flu, and these companies were like, oh shit, this is a great opportunity. And they just tripled the price of eggs, even though there was almost no real impact on the supply of eggs. And of course, as people started scrambling to like hearing about that there was a supply chain shock, they scrambled to grocery stores and just buy up all the eggs because they're like, I got to make sure I have my egg supply, right? So it creates the illusion for customers that there is a supply shortage because just like toilet paper and COVID, there was suddenly no toilet paper, right? And so the narrative created what looked like a shortage. There really wasn't a shortage. And then the companies who make the eggs reported triple profits for several quarters just by tripling the price of eggs, right? They were unaffected. So this is the same shit that's going to happen with AI. It's going to be like, no matter how much cheaper it gets, you're always going to pay more.
Only works if markets are not captured, right? By like one or two.
And they are.
And they just are these days. It's like this kind of how all this is trending. That's why it feels so, it's just like annoying. It feels like everything is just, I don't know. It's just like things are sliding in this way that's like.
Everything's a racket.
Yeah, everything's a racket. It's like collusion happening on those levels. And you're like, I mean, if literally all the AI companies, if all of them just sat down tomorrow together and were like, let's just fucking raise prices by like 100%. What are you going to do?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, the funny thing is, when you have that few players in the market who all have a sufficient level of greed, they don't even have to collude. So like if you're.
It's just someone does it.
If it's you and somebody else and you see that your competitor just raised prices by double, right?
Yeah, you can either be like, hey, we're cheaper, you should use us instead, or you can just raise your prices to match.
Or you just fucking match it.
Yep.
Right? Because then it's like people just still have to buy your stuff and they still have to choose between and switching. People have like defaults, So like if you've always been buying the same brand of laundry detergent or whatever, right? And you suddenly notice that it's more expensive, and then you look and the other detergents are also similarly expensive for some fucking reason, right? Then you're like, I mean, I guess I'll just keep buying the one that I've been buying, right? Because You have no reason to switch if everything is suddenly more expensive. And so they know this. So they just, whenever one company increases prices, every other company just does it. And this has been happening in fast food. It's kind of happening everywhere. And nobody has to say a word to anybody. There's no real collusion happening.
Super annoying.
So anyways, that's pretty cool. That's fun. So anyways, let's get to some questions.
Yeah. Let's go.
So this first question, I'm not sure if we're going to be able to answer it because it's kind of specific, but if not, we'll put a pin in it. And we'll come back to it next time. So this highest upvoted question from podcast.bscussion.net comes from Belkmaster5000, who says, I want to play the 20 question art game mentioned in episode 475. Will you please share the 20 questions to guide them all? So apparently, a year ago or so, we mentioned an art game that involved 20 questions.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know.
I have no recollection of this.
I was like, I don't remember this, but I figured Sam might because it's art related.
Is it the master art process thing I put together? Is that what you're talking about?
Great question, Sam.
It's not so much a game as it is just like it's basically like a bajillion questions you ask yourself as you're making a piece of art. You know what I mean?
Oh, wait, are we being misled because it's the number 20 and 20 questions is a game, but this is just referring to some other set of 20 questions that aren't related to the game 20 questions?
That's my guess.
Is that what's happening? Okay.
All right, so we'll put a pin in this one. We will have we'll have Sampa go through and
figure out
check
what
out that
means.
episode. Figure out what's going on here. So we'll loop back to this one next week. Next question comes from Jumpylumpa Leapylow, aka Degeki, who says, just dropping this in here to say thanks to you bros for sharing yourselves with us in this space. It's awesome getting to know you this way from afar. It sounds kind of creepy when it's put in text like that. Let's call it anonymous friendship building. I guess I need a question. So what are you the most thankful for? So, thanks for the good vibes. Appreciate that.
Vibes, yeah. I'm most thankful for these days. Where are you guys at?
For me, it's health.
Yeah.
As I'm getting older and just having more life experience and having my own health things happen from time to time and then seeing health things happen to other people, I realized that either you have a lot of problems or you have one problem and it's a health problem.
Yep.
And nothing else fucking matters when you have some kind of a health problem. And I'm thankful to have a lot of problems.
Yeah.
You know?
Nice.
Because that means
They're not that.
I'm doing okay. So that's where I'm at.
That's good.
Yeah, I think I'm thankful for the accidents of timing that have resulted in where I am currently. Because if you were to take like my same life and map it on, like just shift it 10 years later, it's been fucking impossible. You know, like like things worked out the way they did. Just like it's a series of accidents, and any one of them, if it didn't happen, everything would look so different.
That's true.
And it's much harder to be a person today than it was 10 years ago, in most ways, or in many ways anyway. And the fact that like I was leaving college, trying to like start building a life for myself or whatever, you know, like in around 2010 instead of around 2020, right? Is like the difference in that decade.
It's different.
Like,
yeah.
It's
And like you didn't grow up
different.
with like Facebook and TikTok and Twitter and stuff in middle school.
Yeah, I got to grow up with a sort of not enshittified, but a significantly less enshittified like environment, you know.
So you're thankful that you're 39
that I'm 39 in 2025, you know?
right now.
It's that combination of things. Like
I get you.
It feels like it lined up because it's. Which isn't to say that like the world is not good, you know, things are bad, right? But like my ability to
you built
live in the
foundation
badness. I had the enormous luck of the choices that I made and the situation that allowed me to make those choices and the timing in which they happened, you know, all came together in a timeline that worked. Where again, if you just like shifted to plus or minus 5 years, but in particular plus 5, like into the future, because when we grew up, like the future was this exciting, you know, optimistic time. And
the 90s.
Yeah, the 90s. Like the 90s were like again, there's no good decade. All decades have their curses, right? But from a time,
but it was a very optimistic decade.
It was a very optimistic decade, and
it felt like the things that sucked weren't going to suck forever.
Yeah,
that's what it felt like.
It felt like that until like 2010, even, you know, where it's like, oh yeah, like. it felt like things were moving they were getting better way too slowly, but it felt like they were getting better.
But I still try to cast forward in a kind of like a cyclical way, which is things go up and down a lot. And I think,
do, yeah.
we were lucky to grow up in a time where things were like a lot of things were moving up for most people. And I think it's easy to look at the current moment. I mean, I always think about this when people talk about populations. They're like, oh my God, if you chart population growth rates, every country is going to be deleted from the map by 2150. It's like as if the trend will just be permanent forever and nothing will change it, right? Mm-hmm. Stuff happens all the time. Things go up and down. And I think it's easy to kind of get super like pessimistic or hopeless about being in one of the downturns, Yeah. And it's definitely going to hit different depending on what stage of life that you're in.
Yeah.
Like for sure. But you just got to hang in there and hold out for the upswing, Mm-hmm. So
I think
I don't
you
have
guys have done
about the upswing personally, because who knows if and when or what it looks like. But yeah, the point being,
I'm saying you don't know when it's coming, but
yeah, or
it'll get there.
Or if there are many countries where they spent decades upon decades in a downswing, so like there's, which I don't want to get.
And oftentimes the upswing comes from a lot of people making a lot of sacrifices to force it to happen.
Yeah. Which is bad because that means you got to do it, right?
Yeah.
So, point being that like it's the exact timing of everything is like I'm very thankful for like the fact that I got to like end
it's
up
easy to
where
be cognizant of it as you're in the middle of like a darker window,
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Because it's like I'm thinking like, oh God, if I was starting college now in the time of AI,
what would you even do?
And rising fascism and all this kind of stuff, right? Like, what does that look like, right?
Yeah.
At a time when even like outside of like the very immediate stuff, but just the fact of like student loans today, they were bad when I was going to school in 2005, right?
Now they're twice as bad.
At least they're twice as bad, and the outcomes are a lot worse. And just like everything is, it's just remarkable how much like a couple decades can.
Yeah, it's important to not lose sight of that too, because it's easy to get stuck in psychological anchor points. Like as you get older and think of like, oh yeah, it's a burger, it's $5. Burgers aren't $5 anymore.
No,
they haven't been for a long time, And so it's important to not lose sight of like what it's really like,
Yeah.
As you get older.
Well, and to me, a lot of it is like it's remembering that every time I see some post about Gen Z, whatever, I'm like, just fucking leave them alone. Right? They're like,
leave them alone. Like back when we were in our 20s, every fucking news article is about millennials. Yeah, millennials are destroying this industry. Millennials aren't doing this. They are doing
millennials are dumb
that.
and poor. Millennials blood.
Yeah. And it's like, no, you know what? We were 20.
Yep.
We were just doing random
the world
shit.
Was becoming more difficult, right? And so,
the world is changing all the time, and people are always changing with it. And that always, and it's always focused on the younger generations because they're the ones who are adapting to the changing world, and everybody else is just trying to hang in there. So it's always like the older people watching the younger people be like, "What are they gonna do next?" When they're just trying to get by, just like the rest of us.
Well, you guys went very high level for your stuff. I think mine, I'll go more just like ground level, which is very direct. Very, very grateful for my wife Diana for both spawning the two, new human beings in the household, but also she's just a fucking trooper, just dealing with those rascals every day. I mean, just the stories.
She's a mom.
She's mom. She's doing so well, and very thankful for that because, of course, it's how I'm able to keep working without being attacked by a toddler every 15 minutes, which is exactly what the toddler would want to do given the opportunity. Yeah. So
15-minute toddler.
Yeah. So I saw a video where it was a mother who had a clicker, like a counter, and she just clicked it over the course of a day. Anytime one of her kids, so she had I think 3 kids, anytime one of them said "mom." Like anytime one of them tried to get her attention. And there was even a 3-hour period in the middle of the day where she had like dropped them off at a movie with her sister or something like that, right? And so not even the whole day. How many times do you think she clicked that thing?
350.
Oh, I was going to go like closer to 1,000. You've got 3 kids involved.
400. It was like 404. So, on average, it's like, she's getting like 18 seconds, or something between one of the kids being like, Mom, do this. Mom, I need this. Mom, can we do this? Mom,
dude, it's insane. And you're trying to teach them stuff, and it's like potty training the 2-year-old right now, and that just it's like it's exciting, but because you're like, wow, we don't have to deal with diapers at some point very soon, but also like, oh my god, like the transition from not having diapers to, or from having them to not, involves a lot of like just being on the ground. You know what I mean? And it's like, shit, how randomly you got to deal with that,
Yep.
So there's so many of these things happening kind of in the background.
There's no like calm, chill, easy period of parenting. They're just different sets of problems that you're cycling through.
There's some phases where like the number of changes aren't quite so rapid, which is we're getting there out of the like newborn and toddlerhood phase. But oh man,
it was kind of a bummer. It's kind of a bummer that like, because I think back to, because of course like our parents would do this with us when we were little babies. And at the time, you have no fucking idea what your parents are giving up to bring you into the world and to raise you and stuff.
Not even necessarily what they're giving up, like in some big like sacrificial context, but just how hard it is. Do you know what I mean? Just like on an emotional level.
Yeah, the effort.
I think about it as a sacrifice in the sense that like even just the ability to sleep through the night, just so you have a good night's sleep. Yep. Like you just don't get to have that for quite a long time, Yep. And as a kid, you're just like, you are the one causing that problem 100%. And you don't give a shit.
You can't.
Right?
It's
so
like
you can't, you're incapable of understanding.
Which honestly makes sense, because I think if you could, you'd probably just like,
die.
It'd be a whole other problem. Yeah.
You'd feel too guilty about, all the shit that you're asking of people. Yep. And you'd be like, I guess I'm so sorry. Yeah.
We're having a very good time with the kiddos. It's just one of those things where it's like the day by day of like working and making sure everyone's healthy and stuff. It's just a lot. And so, yeah, I'm very grateful for Diana kind of being the major corralling force with all that stuff.
Yeah. All right. We guys, we're going to get one more question.
Sure.
I think we got time. All right. Next question comes from WhileifAndorelse.
WhileifAndorelse.
They only capitalized the while and the and so it was kind of hard for me to parse. But WhileifAndorelse says, while playing Crashlands 2, I got nostalgic and had to start a new Crashlands 1 game.
Oh boy.
I noticed that many of the epic level creatures have what looks like bloodshot eyes, like the epic Wampet and Glidopus. It certainly gives them a more menacing look, but I wonder, was there an intentional design decision behind this? Is there some backstory of crystallized juice abuse to make themselves stronger, spending all their time in the gym, not getting enough sleep, and ending up roaming in a juice-induced rage? Well, this kind of comes into what we're doing in 1.3.
Actually does. Let's go ahead. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about what we're doing.
All right, yeah. So 1.3, the goal was, people were like, I want more boss fights. And on the face of it, that's just players just seeing a thing and being like, I want more of that thing, which is oftentimes the type of feedback you get from players. It's rarely like, here's an idea I have for this giant, like whole new concept in the game. They either ask for something from a different game just to be kind of like dropped right in, or they just ask for more of what is already there.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to the framing of that kind of stuff, we always try to think about like, what is it people are really asking for here? Because yeah, like people do want more boss fights, but why? Why do they want more boss fights? And one answer is because the first game had more, which is sure that's fair.
Honestly
that's
the main reason.
That's the main reason. Yep. But also if people didn't like boss fights, they wouldn't ask for more of them. They're fun. They're a fun challenge to like test yourself. And so we're like, okay, we'll do more bosses. So we're doing more bosses. But bosses in Crashlands and in Crashlands 2 are, I'll call them disposable in the sense that you do the storyline, you fight the boss, you kill the boss is dead, it's done. And it doesn't add replay to that playthrough. It's just something you do once. So we're like, okay, we'll do that because that's what people want. But can we do more? Can we do something else? And so we came up with this idea for, right now we're calling it strange creatures. And we're creating sort of super powered versions of all of the creatures that are way, way tougher than the normal ones. We're thinking probably something happened to them with juice.
They got
what
juiced.
This person's asking about.
Yeah.
They got juiced up somehow, and they gained all kinds of wild capabilities. They're very hard to kill. They got a lot of health, and they're essentially a mini boss. And we're also adding a bunch of new game systems and loot. It's kind of oriented around these, which we'll talk about later. But then the problem with these things is like, well, if we just kind of sprinkle them around, then they become less enticing, because if they're common, then it's like, and then also if they're common, they'll be annoying, because if you have to fight a mini boss every time you turn a corner, then it's not a mini boss. That's just, the game is just fighting an endless series of mini bosses. So instead, we gave them this kind of like rare spawning behavior where at the start of each day, we kind of like roll the dice and randomly spawn one, up to, at the moment, the way we got it is up to 2 per major zone. So there's 3 major regions in the world. There's Marla's Mantle, the Husk, and the Aqua Dunes. And each of those regions will only ever have up to 2 strange creatures in it at a time. And those creatures they'll be marked on your map, so you know that they're there and you know where they are, but you don't know what type of creature it is until you go over there and try to fight it. And it'll just be there until you defeat it. And once it's defeated, then at the start of the next day, we roll the dice again and populate a new strange creature in the zone. And so it's added this kind of cool Monster Hunter vibe to the game of like, you'll be at your map, you got your quest markers, you got your stuff you're going to do, and then there'll be these like icons on your map where you're just like, should I go fight that thing? Because if you, ready? It's just there. Yeah. And if you beat it, then you get a bunch of loot from it. There's going to be some like new cool items and new drops and stuff like that. And then of course it also spawns a new one the next day that you can then choose whether you want to go fight that one. And so I don't know, it's just like it's added this really nice like variety to questing the world where you always have the option to go fight one of these things. Because by the time you get to the end of the game, then there'll be 6 up at a time because there's 2 per major region, and they scale with you. So
you can't just beat them by.
So toward the end of the game, you could always go back to Marla's Mantle and fight strange creatures, and they'll be hard just the whole time. We're adding tons of new abilities to these things. Yeah. So they're doing wild shit that the normal versions of those creatures don't do, and they also attack quite a bit faster. Like they're crazy. So
yeah, I would say there wasn't an actual thematic linkage of like the bigger ones in the original game in terms of like why they were crazier looking. Typically, it's just that they're the bigger ones.
We just wanted them to look cooler.
Yeah, they just need to look a little scarier. And I think it actually stopped. It was just, what's funny is like the first Wombat is actually one of the most intense ones because I like changed one of its ears. But oh man, that was so much work to like cut took too much. Little bit into that guy's ears. So I didn't do that for all the rest is like 18 creatures, whatever. But all these ones, they'll all have that, like they'll have like a skin change, so they'll be all kind of spooky. And
the Wombat was less about bloodshot and more that it was just albino.
Yes, it was albino.
It just had red eyes because it was an albino Wombat. Yeah. I think that was the rationale there.
But yeah, the ways we're taking the idea from there and making it more intense with this whole like they're just juiced up. They're like anomalous and really really gonna get you. And hopefully be worth it. Hopefully be worth it.
And we're working with Fat Bard to get some like special strange creature battle music. Like we want it to feel like you're doing like a little mini boss fight, right? And you kind of always have the option to do that. So hopefully that satisfies people's craving for intense combat encounters in a way that just adding more bosses, I don't think really satisfies in like a long-term kind of a way. So yeah, that's what we've been working on a lot this week is kind of building out that system and fleshing those out. So we got time for one more question. It's pretty quick. And this question is pretty straightforward, which is, have you ever made a physical game? Questions from Challosis.
Yes.
What did you make?
Did we?
Did we make? Did we make one? Or did you make one? What did we make?
We got like a remember we got like some foam board and stuff, and we made some really weird.
Yeah, I have a vague recollection of something.
Oh yeah.
It was like there were a bunch of creatures, and then there was a grid, and you put them on there, and who the fuck knows? We did make it.
I don't remember.
Yeah,
I remember that. I remember making it. I don't remember.
I don't remember what it did.
And then I made when I was in elementary school, when I was in 4th grade, we had a Macintosh computer in the classroom, and somebody brought in a floppy that had SimAnt, a floppy disk that had SimAnt on it.
Mm-hmm. Amazing.
This was a time when a video game was under 1.44 megabytes, which is what a floppy disk was.
Insane.
I think it took 2 or 3 disks to install the game, but so we had SimAnt, and that was a super cool game where it was just like you managed this ant colony and you played as an ant, and it was actually, like, in retrospect, it was a pretty small game in the sense that, like, there was like a fixed map and there was like a spider somewhere that you had to make sure you avoided. Yep. And then and it was cool because it flipped from a top-down view to a side view, because when you're on the surface, it's a top-down view as you're crawling around, getting, like, foraging for food. And then when you went into the colony, then it was a side view of, like, the tunnels. And so you would kind of dig and, like, make a little ant colony, which is super cool. So I made a board game version of that in 4th grade and brought it to class, and we would play it at recess because we had limited computer time. They wouldn't let us play SimAnt on the computer, but they would let us play board games. So you're like, so I just fucking made a board game version. And they were like, "Oh, you sneaky little shit." Yep. We'll let it slide.
That's
I don't think I got most of it at some point. I think I remember, which is not the same, but in terms of like making, doing a physical board game thing, was actually more of like a stealing a board game, which is there's this old Dune board game from the 70s that's been out of print since the 70s. And one of my friends in college had it. And it's just like really intense, like factions and lying and
it's like risk, sort of like
it's like risky. Yeah. Like it's a little bit like it takes a long, long time, but like so you play as the various factions of Dune, and like each faction has like a special ability. So if you're playing as the Fremen, then you can like sandworm across the map, and it's kind of like a risk board where it's like the different regions of Arrakis, right? You can like place your various units and you try to like take over the place, right? And then if you're like the Bene Gesserit at the beginning of the game, you can predict like, I think on turn 7, this faction will do this or will win. And then if they win, actually you win as a Bene Gesserit. So like all this is like fun.
I remember you telling me about this game way back then, and it sounded cool, but I hadn't read the books or seen anything about it, so like
without
it kind of slipped off. It kind of slipped off the dome.
Yeah, you need the
but
whole.
Now I'm like, oh, that's fucking sick.
Exactly. Yeah, you need the whole. Like I loved Dune at the time, and so but you need the whole ass context of like the Dune franchise to like to know what's going on. But so that was really fun. But we loved playing this game, but we had one copy of it that my friend had, and just couldn't find it because it had been out of print for decades, and so at some point we sat down and we're like, all right, let's just make copies of but do it so that we got like big pieces of like canvas.
I remember that because you did this at home over winter break, I think.
Yeah. Because my friends basically came to hang out with basically came to our house over. Was it some
pirated it?
Winter break or something.
Yeah, we got a projector so we could like project it onto these pieces of canvas that we hung up, and then we painted the maps, and then like got cards made for all the different stuff. And we went all out and built like 2 or 4 or something copies of it. So I still have my copy of it, and I haven't opened it up for a long time. So it's been down there for 20 years. So it's probably I don't even know if it'll collapse when I open it. But it was like there's something extreme. So designing a physical game is one. It's extremely challenging, and it's one thing, right? Having like just taken an existing board game and just like kind of made it physically. That part is extremely satisfying. So it's the tactile bit is really fun. Like the problem solving of like, okay, how do I want it to feel high quality, but we can't spend much money on it. Trying to figure out all that kind of stuff is like really fun. But when it comes to like the design part of a board game, for me, it's that iteration loop. Yeah, the iteration loop for physical things. I'm like, oh, that's a lot for me.
That's why you do a lot of paper prototyping, right? You just like,
but even paper prototyping is like. Because you still gotta like draw it, cut something out, whatever, and then you're like, oh fuck, I didn't like this. Then you go do that again, right? Yeah. It's compared to the what you can do for iteration with digital stuff. It's just
a lot of people use stuff like Tabletop Simulator. Like there's a lot of like board game simulation websites and services and stuff that people use to do this stuff. So I've actually quite a few times now I have played people's board game prototypes online.
Yeah.
Yep.
Fat Bart actually are
like to give. Yeah.
Patrick from our Patrick team makes cool ass board games just like for fun using those tabletop.
Just played one of his a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
It was awesome.
Yep.
I was like, well, are you going to get this thing printed or what? He's like, I don't know. I'm like, God damn it. I'll buy it if you make it. Yep. So yeah, it's been a journey trying to figure that stuff out. And like, I don't know. It's something I always wanted to do is like try to make an actual physical game, but there's so much logistical shit of printing and
the logistics of
pieces.
physical goods is just
wild.
Yeah. But also I feel like board games were just cruising and then COVID hit. It felt like there was a growing kind of a popularity of different board games.
I think they did actually. They sustained pretty good during COVID. It's really just like the China tariffs thing. It's just been what fucking is killing them.
Yeah. If
you literally
triple
right
to print your stuff and get your pieces made and stuff. Yeah.
Well, that's too. Is like it's easy to complain about the price of them because board games are expensive, right? But like when you go like unpack them, like they have to be made in a limited run because not that many people will buy them, so they can't really take advantage of scale, right? And each fucking board game is like everything in it is custom. Like no other board game has that stuff, right? So it's a full custom job. The box is like intricately designed and assembled and like heavy cardboard, like, and you open it up, there's all these pieces and stuff. And it's like, yeah, it makes sense that these things are expensive, but it is also true that if you double the cost of them, now it's not just expensive. It's like out of reach, right?
It sounds like the move is to make a basic board game kit that has a whole variety of different board types and pieces and stuff. And then people can make their own board games by just selling rule books of how to set it up and play.
Kind of like how
you make a
D&D
platform
works, but like we kind of like you're splitting the difference between a board game and D&D.
Yeah.
Right.
So you got you just like a box of like all the different pieces, and then you can set up however you need to based on whatever. Shit, I just gave away the idea. Oh God, somebody's going to take it and run with it now. Oh well, I didn't want to do it anyway.
Oh no, then somebody else can do all the work and we can just go buy it.
Oh no.
Oh no.
So yeah,
nobody does that.
That would be kind of sick.
But if you
just
do,
like a modular board game,
definitely let us know. Rub it in our faces.
Yeah, rub it in our faces and tell us how much it's
But since the idea came from here, we get at least 50% of the profits because that's how ideas work, right? So yeah, you can just send us a check. It's fine. That's all the time we have for this week. We'd like to thank our producers, Fat Bard and Sampa DaCosta, for putting the podcast together. And thanks to our community moderators who keep our Discord running. To get more involved in the Butterscotch community, just go to podcast.bscotch.net, where we have links to the Discord, a way for you to donate, and links to the podcast archives. And if you haven't yet, head on over to Steam, the App Store, and Google Play, and buy Crashlands 2 on all of them, as well as get all of our other games and give them good reviews. It helps us a lot because money, but also because of visibility. We appreciate it. So thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.